We've heard from so many of you really championing mental health in the workplace,
Hmm.
which is amazing, doing the work, advocating for yourselves. But sometimes it can feel like you're hitting a wall,
Right.
speaking up, but not seeing that change, real change. It feels impossible. So we're diving into a question we've heard a lot: to disclose a mental health diagnosis at work or not.
Yeah.
To disclose or not to disclose, that is the question.
Big question. And such a tough one for so many people.
It really is. Because on one hand, you want your workplace to understand, be supportive, right?
Of course.
But then on the other hand, what happens when you open up? What are the risks? So in this deep dive, we really want to arm you with the information to make the choice that's best for you.
Absolutely.
We're looking at Cheap ABA, specifically their article, The Dilemma of Disclosure, Navigating Workplace Advocacy and Mental Health.
Oh, it's a great article. Really practical.
It really is. And one of the things they start by saying is, even when you're advocating effectively, sometimes without the right workplace culture, change is just slow.
It is. Yeah.
It's just slow and it's frustrating.
It's painfully slow.
Yes. The article even calls this the harsh reality of inaction, and they talk about how emotionally draining it can be to be putting in all this effort and just not really seeing the change.
It's so disheartening. It really is.
Mm.
Especially when you're already dealing with a mental health challenge on top of it all.
Totally.
Makes you feel like you're just, shouting into a void.
Yes, exactly. And I think that feeling of being unheard, it leads people to think, okay, maybe I need to disclose my diagnosis. Like
Okay.
maybe if they understood, then I would get the support. But what I really appreciate about this article is they don't shy away from, the hard part, the potential downsides of being open.
Yeah.
It's not to say don't do it. It's just to make sure you have the full picture.
Right. Because the truth is, even in workplaces that are, quote unquote, progressive or whatever, there are still risks
There are.
associated with being open about your mental health.
Yeah.
And, one of the biggest ones is stigma.
Stigma. We hear that word a lot. But what does that actually look like? Like, how does that actually play out in the workplace?
It can be really subtle, like
Exactly.
unconscious bias creeping into things.
Right.
Like maybe you're being looked over for a promotion, and it's hard to know for sure, but you wonder,
Yeah. Is it because?
is it because they know this about me?
Mm.
And that label,
It's like it becomes this lens
Yeah.
that distorts everything, even if people don't realize it's happening.
Yeah. And this actually connects with another risk they talk about in the article, which is misinterpretation of performance.
Ooh,
So say you're in a high-pressure job, you're having a tough week,
been there.
right? You're not meeting deadlines or something,
Yeah.
or you just can't focus. Now, there could be a million reasons for that, right?
Right. A million reasons.
Maybe you're stressed out, maybe your routine's messed up, maybe you just need a little extra support that week.
Totally.
But if your workplace knows about your mental health, knows about a diagnosis, it's so easy for them to go there
Oh, 100%.
and be like, oh, well, that's why.
Right. Like it's automatically,
Instead of, oh, everyone has a tough week, it's like, well, that's because of,
that's who you are. Yeah.
and that misinterpretation can have serious consequences.
Yeah. That's the fear, right? That being open about your mental health could actually hurt you.
And the article actually shares some real stories, unfortunately, about where disclosure led to job loss because the employer saw the diagnosis as a liability.
Wow. It's really disheartening.
Yeah, it makes you just want to not say anything.
Totally.
But the good news is you can advocate for yourself, advocate for your needs without directly disclosing.
Okay.
And this is where it gets really cool, and they lay out some more strategies, ways to do that.
Tell me more. Okay, so what are some of these other approaches?
So they call it solutions-oriented advocacy.
Hmm.
So instead of leading with the diagnosis, I have X and therefore I need Y, it's more about solutions for everyone.
Okay.
How do we make this work for everybody? So for example, let's say you're really sensitive to noise. Like it's really hard to concentrate in an open office plan.
Right.
So instead of saying, my anxiety makes it impossible to work with all this noise,
Right.
you could say, I've noticed when it's noisy, it's really hard for me to focus, and it's hard for me to meet deadlines, which I want to do.
Right.
Could we look at some different options? Maybe noise canceling, or maybe there's a quieter space I could work in sometimes. And you frame it as, I think this would be good for everyone's productivity.
You're still advocating for your need,
Yes.
but it's framed in a way that's like
Positive.
positive and it's actually a benefit to everybody.
Exactly. Solutions-oriented. And they give a lot of examples like that. Being specific, What are the challenges? What are some solutions that would work? Things like that.
It sounds like a much more empowering approach.
It really is.
But what if you've tried that, and things still aren't better? Where do you go from there?
That's where documentation is so important.
Okay.
The article really stresses this. Keep a record of your conversations.
Oh.
Every requests you've made, what happened, the outcome.
So just like a paper trail, basically.
Exactly. And there are two main reasons for this.
Okay.
One, it protects you.
Right.
Because if later on there are questions about, well, what about this?
Yeah.
You could say, well, we talked about this back on this date.
Here's what we said.
Exactly.
So it's like your own record of, okay, how did we get here?
Right, exactly. And then the second reason is it shows you're trying.
Okay.
You're not just complaining.
Right.
You're actually trying to work within the system.
You're invested in making it work.
Yeah. Yes. Now, on top of those things, they also say external support is huge.
Okay.
So that could be, a therapist or a counselor.
Right.
Support groups, trusted friends, family.
Yeah, because it can be so emotional and you need someone to talk to who gets it.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes people think, oh, I need support. That means I'm weak. And it's not true.
No, not at all.
It's about your well-being. And sometimes you just need to process without it feeling like your job is on the line.
Right, like your job is at stake every time you say something.
Yeah, you need that separation.
It's like having a coach in your corner.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
And then finally, the article's big takeaway, know your rights.
Okay, yes, good one.
What are the employment laws? The protections where you are? Because if you do end up needing to go down the road of formal accommodations, you'll know what you're entitled to, and you'll feel a lot more confident.
You're not just going in blind.
Exactly.
Wow, okay. So really, it's about being thoughtful and kind of strategic with how you advocate for yourself, especially around mental health.
Yes. Carefully considering, the good and the bad that could come from being open about a diagnosis.
And sometimes that means advocating in different ways, like we were talking about, solutions that work for everyone.
And taking care of yourself throughout the process.
Yes. And it makes me think, how can we create workplaces where people feel supported, whether or not they share a diagnosis? Wouldn't that be amazing?
That's the dream, right? Where mental health is just as important as physical health.
Totally. Where you can just say, hey, I need this. And it's not a big deal. It's not a big reveal.
Exactly.
It's just part of being human.
Yes.
Well, on that note, we'll leave you all with that question to ponder. Until next time, keep learning, keep advocating, and keep diving deep.